Howdy peeps, thought I'd do another video for you. You know, before I even start the video, right, has anyone got one of these like office chairs that doesn't creak? Like literally every single chair that I've had. I mean this one's relatively cheap and probably made in China. sorry, not sorry. It just irritates the daylights out of me, man, it really does. I've got to say, the video that I was going to do wasn't going to be quite so cheery. Nah. And it's not exactly a follow-on as such from the last one, but it kind of is. You see, I've just listened to one of the other tarot channels that I listen to, and there's no denying it, man. They're just spot on. They're just fucking spot on, like down to the T, talking about the third party. Well, I say third party, you know what I mean. In that particular situation I've been talking about, I suppose it's the second party, but you know what I mean by third party, right? It wasn't like some triangle shit going on and nothing like that. At least I didn't consider it as such. And it's funny because even after I did the video called Be Yourself, which was the idea being, or the intent being, closure for the other person, and then I've just listened to this other tarot reader, and it's just sort of like, no, they're absolutely right. This chick is absolutely right. This woman is absolutely right in what she's saying. It's like, even after I put out the video, you know, trying to, you know, give this other person some form of closure as to why I've had to do what I've had to do, I thought about it afterwards, and I thought, it's a pretty pointless task. They're not going to get it. Like, they're not going to grasp the concept that their own actions, their own persona, just their very being themselves. Maybe I should have chosen them words carefully. But it's true, just them being themselves as they normally are every day, unchanging. They're probably going to be sat back thinking, I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't do anything, because they're so used to living in that routine that they don't consider their actions to be wrong in some way, shape or form. And even when things were pointed out and made obvious, you might get an apology, but then 15-20 minutes later they're doing the same thing again. So it's like, well, clearly you're not sorry, otherwise you would have taken the necessary steps in order to correct your behaviour or correct whatever it was that they were doing that pissed one or more people off in the first place. And like I said, after listening to that, it's just like, yeah, I can just see that person just sitting there going, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, I'm not the problem, you are. And it's like, really? Really? So I want to be a bit more blunt and harsh in this one. It's like, really? Why do you think so many people turn their back on you? Is it them? Or is it you that's the problem? That's that question. That's that question that people need to ask themselves. If you've ever been in that situation and you're wondering why people keep coming into your life for a short time, some stay longer than others, but eventually they end up moving on. And now in life you're going to find that anyway. But if it's a repetitive cycle, then you've seriously got to ask the question as to whether it's something that you're doing in your mannerisms, your behaviour or your personality that maybe you ought to consider changing. And the ironic part is, you know, like I said in the other video, it's like these have been behaviours that I have excused for having my own sort of reasons as to why. but behaviours that I have excused, and if I've excused them, then I've encouraged them. And if I've encouraged them, then the other person's going to see no real reason as to why they should change in the first place. Because you're putting up with that shit, as it were. But yeah, I thought to myself afterwards, it's like, was that closure for me or for them? And I had sort of a little laugh, but, you know, it's like, realistically, it's like, they're probably not going to get it anyway. I can't see it, and it's like, as the tarot reader described, it's like, you know, I could just see them sitting back and being like, oh, I don't understand what all the drama's about, and it's like, I'm just counting the amount of people in my head now that have actually turned their back on this situation in the last 3 years. I think it's about five people that were relatively close-knit in terms of that community. And it wasn't a particularly big community in the first place. So, you know, it should kind of speak masses, but again, it also comes down to, again, the stuff that I've been talking about on the channel. And whereas, and not that I want to suggest that the issue here is narcissistic personality disorder, I would say it definitely got traits. And it's like, if, you know, they can't see it being them that is the problem. They won't. And even when you point it out, even when you put all even when you give them a dot to dot that's been numbered, they still can't connect the fucking dots. Or maybe they won't connect the dots, or don't want to connect the dots. Because it comes down to personal accountability and responsibility. You know? And again, also coming down to that thing, understanding how people with the personality disorder work, is in whereas if you've allowed it to happen, they will continue to come back until you shut them out, until you close the door on them. They will carry on doing the same old thing. But yeah, so that was kind of that. It just sort of made me laugh having listened to this other tarot reader, and I'm just like, you know what, you're absolutely spot on, girl. You're absolutely 100% right there. I can just see them sitting there going, oh, well, I haven't done anything. So, no, you did. You did. I just excused it for 3 fucking years. And it doesn't matter because it's done now. I'm done. I'm out. I'm finished. I've thrown the towel in, man. It's like, nah. No, I'm finished. You ain't going to change. You're not. I know they're going to watch this one as well. You're not going to change, man. Because changing really means you accepting that there's a problem. And you won't. You haven't done it in 3 years. You're not going to do it now. You know. Anyway, moving swiftly on, because that's another 8 minutes. 8:25 on the clock. Yeah, have a look into that one if you want. Shall I? Let's do it. Let's see what 8:25 is, just for the giggles. Right, here we go. Just back up to that one. I'm just curious. I'm just absolutely curious. Like I say, I don't know the angel numbers, but I find it fascinating that I say these things, and lo and behold, a lot of the time it comes up. Oh my giddy aunt. Well, here you go. Right, so number 825 is a blend of the influences and vibrations of number 8 and 2 and the attributes of number 5. Number 8 relates to practicality, personal power and authority, dependability and self-reliance, manifesting positive abundance, discernment and decisiveness, a desire for peace and a love of humanity, world transformation, giving and receiving, and the universal spiritual law of cause and effect, karma. I'll tell you what, I'll skip all that because that just goes into all the individuals. Angel number 825 brings a message for you to make decisions and choices that suit who you truly are rather than those that others may wish you to make and or pursue. Listen to your own inner wisdom, also known as intuition. Intuition and soul promptings, and do not allow others to manipulate you in any way. Stay true to yourself in every way in order to manifest your true goals and aspirations. 825 brings a message to honestly look at the influences and energies around you and discern which are positively serving you and which are depleting or hindering you. Close the door on situations and or people who drain your energies and distract you from your highest path. Take full responsibility for yourself and your decisions and choices and make the changes that your intuition knows you need to. 825 is a message to follow your intuition and take the necessary steps in order to bring about the much needed changes in your life and lifestyle. Ask the angels to help you with any adjustments and transitions you may go through, and trust that you are supported and loved as you pursue your spiritual purpose and soul mission. What was I just saying? Coincidence? No. No, because I don't sit here and time what I'm going to say, then look up at the clock and pull out a random number and lo and behold it fits in with what I've just spoken about. Yeah, I know, right? Spooky shit, right? Woo-woo shit, right? Yeah, welcome to my world, man. I've had many years of that, actually. I'm just saying. 11, 18. Go on, look it up. Oh my God. Anyway, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about in this is, I've said this before, a situation that I was in, I think this was about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and where I was out with some friends and air quotes loved ones and that, and they'd all kind of gone off to get some food, and one of them had left their girlfriend. Their girlfriend decided to stay back while I was just finishing up doing what I was doing, and so I sort of got chatting to them. I didn't know them that well, and I was just sort of like being a bit polite, making conversation rather than having an awkward silence, right? And like I said, I've had this thing before where I kind of, how can I describe it? It's like time. In a split second, time stops still, and I just pick up something about this a person's energy, like in this case, this person's energy, right? And I just knew. And then she kind of looked at me in a certain way, and I thought to myself, I can't trust this person. Like not in a bad sense, not that they were going to do something to me, because I wasn't that involved with them, right? But I knew that they weren't any good for the person that they were with, who was at the time a very close friend, and I just knew. But it's one of those things where you can't really say anything, because I can't say anything, because if I'm wrong, then and again, not that I've ever been wrong on that one, I've got to say, in the times when it's come up and it's been a thing, I have not been wrong, right? And it's not the sort of thing you can really approach one of your friends with and say, oh, by the way, I've just got this feeling about your missus, right? That's gonna be a friendship breaker right there, I'm sure, right? Especially when nothing has actually happened at that moment in time. But yeah, and so I just had this intuitive feeling about her that she was just no good for my friend, and it was just going to end up in a Three of Swords moment, heartbreak and heartache and all of that, the usual shit that comes with it. But then I thought nothing of it, and I didn't see them for months on end, and then one day I got a message, and it's like, oh, do you want to meet up, and so on, and so yeah, I'm cool. Long story cut short, turns out they'd split up because she'd been misbehaving behind his back. Well, and I had a similar thing happen recently with someone else, and it was one of them moments, and I can't describe it. It's just like I say, time will kind of stop for a split second. And it's almost like that intuitive moment, and it's like, I'm like, really? It's just so random and so weird. And this is someone, Like, in this case, I have known them for a while, and I'm like, something tells me your intentions aren't 100% pure. Something tells me I can't trust you 100%. You put on a very innocent facade and all of this, but really I think there's something a bit more sinister going on. And the worst part is I can't even mention anything about this to anyone. There is a chance they might watch the channel, actually. Right, so I'll fucking tell you now. You fucking behave yourself, man. I'm just saying. Bad things are going to happen for you. Let me tell you, karma is a bitch. It's also why karma is my best friend. Just saying. But yeah, it's this thing, and I think I know the level of what it's at. It's kind of like how can I put it? Not a psychology energy. Not a psychology energy, but definitely maybe a psychic, actually. Maybe psychic, a psychic energy in having some form of power over another. I'd say deep down probably quite a jealous person, which I never really ever thought of before, given that they have the world, as it were, at their feet. They have wish fulfillment. They have most things that the average guy could really only wish for. You know, all of that. You know, children, loving partner, roof over the head, food in the belly, plenty of material luxuries. And again, not that I'm saying life should be about material luxuries, but let's face it, it is a thing. And yeah, I think more often than not these things get taken for granted, but you know, generally speaking, I think we do take the piss a little bit. Especially if, you know, you don't live within your means in the first place, and you're not prioritising what you should have versus what what you need versus what you want, right? 1717, just saying. Read that one up. But anyway, and then later on I was with someone else, and I was listening to what they were saying just in general. And it was that thing of like, because especially when I'm looking for like, if I have an interest in someone and I'm sort of weighing them up, as it were, in terms of the potential for being, air quotes, a romantic partner, but not just a romantic, you know, like I've always said, someone that's going to come into a relationship and give 100%, both parties giving 100%, 1800, whatever, 1759 to 1800, you know. And whereas when I was listening to what was being said in that particular conversation, I'm sat there and I'm thinking, this person doesn't get it. Like, this person is still, you know, despite having been on the planet for over 2.5 decades, still haven't quite got the gist of how this life thing works, you know. And I'm sort of thinking to myself, it's another difference, right? It's another thing. 1843, it's another difference in character. And I'd been weighing them up, as it were, in terms of relationship material. And as like many females that I've met of recent, more red flags than a Chinese Communist parade party. Just saying. Just saying. But it's just their complete, I suppose, Page of Pentacles attitude towards it. You know, they're still quite 1919. They're still quite maybe wet behind the ears, or maybe just expectant of being given things. You know, like, say most people were fully aware that, you know, when you're working your way up to get on the property ladder, and especially when it comes to relationships, it's like you've both got to be putting in 100% to that relationship, otherwise it's not going to fall up. You know, it's not going to work. It will fall apart. More so when you're trying to build something long term. You know, I've been on the property ladder twice in my life, and You know, it's not an easy task. And then, you know, to listen to what this person was saying about, oh, you know, getting somewhere to live, and it's sort of like you're not paying attention to what's going on around you. You know, like when it comes down to getting the gist of moving out of, you know, living at home with family or grandparents, parents, whatever the case may be, moving out from that into rented accommodation. And much as I have my gripes with rented accommodation because it is dead money, you know, you're paying someone else's mortgage off, right? It's still a step further towards independence. You know, it might not be your pad, as it were, but it is still, you know, independence from being dependent on your sort of family life. And that is when you really start living, and that is when you really appreciate, you know, in the cases where the scenario is good, the relationship is good between yourself and your siblings, if you have them, and your parents after you move out, is that dynamic changes. And depending what the scenario is, sometimes, you know, you might be glad to get out and never look back and not have to talk to them again, if that's your particular scenario. 2111. And the other one is you appreciate, you know, if they are of loving and caring nature and nurture, you know, your relationship will change with them, and you will appreciate their time more, and you will appreciate seeing them more. And at the same time, you've got, you know, your own independence, which makes you feel better, even if you are in rented accommodation and probably paying through the nose for it. Just saying. 2141. But yeah, and it's listening to what the other person had to say, and I sort of thought to myself, this is someone that is supposedly in a committed relationship, and it's like neither party have ever made any actual bold move of seriousness towards a relationship, you know, towards having a relationship, towards building a life. That is the whole idea of a relationship, is to build a life together, to build up on the experience, to get to know each other. And I think there's a whole generation out there that just hasn't got a clue. 2220 hasn't got a clue as to what they're doing when it comes to these things. And it's, you know, despite the fact that yes, rent is expensive, yes, bills are expensive, and it's like, but that's the idea, you know, is that you find someone that you're compatible with, you have some at least shared interests and hobbies or ways of life or something, right? And you build on that. And again, that's not to say that, you know, that but the idea being is, you know, generally speaking, the first 3 years of being together will indicate as to whether you guys are compatible or not. It's the same as a business model, right? You put a business together, the first 3 years will be the most trying. If you can make it past the 3 to 3.5 mark and you can still grow strong, then there's a very good chance that unless something happens within the economy, that your economy, your business economy, will carry on growing regardless. 2323, it's the same for romantic relationships. Same principle, same concept. You know, granted, with relationships, people and personalities do kind of get in the way a little bit, but, you know, and sometimes you don't quite know who someone is until they take the mask off, if that's a scenario that you're in. Like I've said before about, you know, a few of my experiences, and it's not that they took the mask off, it's that thing of in my case, I refused to see the red flags, or I gave excuses for the red flags. So that's on me, right? Personal accountability, just saying. 2410. Wrapping this one up. Thank you all for listening. Thoughts, comments, opinions, feel free to jump down to the next one. Stay cool, stay free. 2418. Peace out.